Welcome to Read the Book First, a book to movie adaptation podcast. I'm your host, Jenessa, and today's episode's a little bit different. It's just me by myself. I wanted to do a check-in episode as we're about halfway through the year to talk about what I've read this year so far and just podcast related things and some news as we continue on this year and this season 5. I'm going to start out with some stats about my personal reading, and then I have some questions from my audience and friends that I'm going to answer, and then I'll go into some news and upcoming things happening. I'm recording this at the end of May, and so far I have read 30 books, which is a little bit higher than my normal rate. I usually read 50 books in a year, and I'm aiming for 60 this year. Last year I surpassed 50, which was awesome. But this year has been busy, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Of those books, 5 of them were for the podcast, and of those 5 books I've read for the podcast, 4 were rereads. So I've done a handful of rereads this year, and I've enjoyed a lot of the rereads, which has been fun. A little genre breakdown. I have read 8 fantasy books, 10 romances, 6 general literary fiction books, 5 nonfictions, and 1 sci-fi. This genre breakdown is pretty normal. I think last year I read more sci-fi than fantasy, and this year it's looking more fantasy. A lot of these books are middle grade graphic novels because I love middle grade books, and I get a lot of graphic novels off NetGalley as an early reviewer, which I love, and it's where I get a lot of my reading done. I've only had 2 5-star reads this year, which is a little surprising. I've had a lot of good reads, like 4, 4.25, 4.5 stars, but only 2 out of the park 5 stars. And they're both by Rachel Reed, those books being Role Model and A Long Game. I, as you guys know, listeners, fell hard for heated rivalry and all that entails. So those are my top books of 2026 so far. Lots of reading time left to go. I have DNF'd 2 books this year, which is a lot for me. I've been trying to DNF more books because life's been busy, and I think life is too short to read a book that you don't care about. So I am very much pro DNF, which stands for did not finish, if you are not a bookish person. All right. I got some questions from my friends and listeners, so I want to go into those. The first question is, how do I choose what books and movies to discuss on the podcast? There's 3 different avenues of how I choose a book and movie combo for the podcast. The first avenue is, do I want to do it? Which is, either revisiting a favorite, such as The Princess Bride or Red, White, and Royal Blue, and then bothering my friends who I think will agree to do the podcast on that book or movie with me. The second avenue is that I have a huge spreadsheet of potential books and movies that anyone could, join an episode for, and I mark if I've read it before or not and what potential adaptations we'd cover. And I reach out to my friends or bookish online podcasts and online friends that I've made and say, hey, do you want to be a guest host on my podcast? If you do, here's a huge list of things we could do. On that list, there's also a column of when I have returning guests and my friends who dib books. So there's some books we're planning on doing, next year, the year after. But I have my friends dib those books so that way when the time comes, either seasonally or I'm feeling like reading that book, I say, hey, we're going to read this book in the next couple of months. Want to be on the podcast still? And they usually say yes. And then the third avenue is I try to mix in some either recent books or recent adaptations because that's good for the SEOs of, getting people to find the podcast. That's why this year, we did Heated Rivalry and Wuthering Heights. And honestly, we did a lot of episodes this year with new adaptations. Percy Jackson, People We Meet on Vacation. And so that's been fun. So that's how I choose what books and movies I do. Someone asks, how do you read so much? And the answer is you just got to make time for it. I love audiobooks, and that helps me read a lot because I listen to it when I'm doing chores or yard work or driving to and from work. I also this year have really gotten into ebooks, specifically graphic novels from either the library system or NetGalley. And graphic novels, you can sit down for an hour and read a book. So it's kind of like a little cheat code. And I also try to read every night before I go to bed. One, it just helps my brain just kind of shut off because I'm not looking at a phone. But also I get, 10 to 30 minutes a night of reading, and that adds up over the week. So that's how I find time to read. A friend of the show, Chandler, asks, will you ever tackle Lord of the Rings? Maybe as a big book club style chat. And yes, I do want to tackle Lord of the Rings. For those that do not know me in my real life, I love Lord of the Rings. I have not read the books, honestly, since I was like 14 or 15. I've rewatched the movies too many times to count. And I do want to tackle those, and they have been dibbed by other friend of the show, Marissa. And so eventually we will get to those. It's just that that's going to take a lot of time because I want to do my due diligence. Same with someone asks if I'm ever going to cover Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is my other favorite book of all time. So I also want to really dig into that. Last year, my cousin Spencer and I did Sense and Sensibility, which was so much fun. And I think we will eventually do Pride and Prejudice together. But she's in grad school at the moment, and my life's busy at the moment. So that's not happening anytime soon. But don't worry, I'll make a whole to-do once we eventually do Pride and Prejudice. Some other folks were asking about other specific books like Hunger Games. Yes, we're planning on doing that in the future. More Bridgerton books. Yes, I am planning on doing that in the future. Some people have asked me why I don't do scary books, and that is because I'm a scaredy pants. I get freaked out easily over scary books, and I do want to read more creepy books because I enjoy like weird, quote, weird girl books. And I enjoy gothic literature. And so I think there is a subgenre of like thriller, mystery, creepy books, suspense books that I will enjoy. But finding those books is really tough because I'm so scared that it's hard for me to even try to get into that genre. And the last question comes from friend of the show, Marissa. She asks, why do I love birds so much? And Marissa, watch your back. That was dramatic. I'm sorry. If you don't know Marissa, she loves birds, and she always teases me about how I secretly like birds because all my friends and my fiance are bird nerds. I don't like birds. I just happen to know more than I used to know about them. Anyways, those are all the questions that folks have asked me. I have lots of ideas for the future of the podcast, and a lot of those ideas I want to actually try to work on towards the end of this year, but currently I'm in the process of moving across the country, which is very exciting, but that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So as you're listening to this podcast, as it is published, I will be in the process of moving from the East Coast back to the West Coast, and I'm very excited for this next, chapter of my life. But that means there's going to be a break of a few weeks of the podcast while I'm settling into Isaac's my new place. I do have plans of more books we're going to do this summer. Don't worry, we are going to be covering the next chapter in the Twilight episodes, which of course will be Eclipse. Me and Stephanie will be returning with that later this year. We are going to be tackling Hunger Games this year because we need to tackle Sunrise on the Reaping. So that is coming up later this year. I'm also going to be doing a lot more of like kid books because those are quick books I can do quite fast. So that's coming up. One of my goals is to figure out how to do live streams. And if you were not aware, I currently have a Patreon. I'll link that below. And one of the things I would love to do is more live streams, either on the Patreon exclusively, maybe a couple free ones to get folks interested and see what people would like to talk about, and like more like either a movie club or a book club. I'm not sure how it looks, but I think it would be cool to do specifically a movie club where we watch movies that don't have a specific tie to any books, short stories, poems, etc., but just are fun movies. Like, for example, it is currently the 20th anniversary of A Knight's Tale, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I would love to do an episode on Knight's Tale, but like I don't want to go read Chaucer. Like, I avoided reading Chaucer throughout my English degree. I don't want to start now when I'm in my 30s reading Chaucer. That's not for me. That's not my journey. But I do want to talk about A Knight's Tale. So I'm thinking of different ways of doing movie clubs or different kind of like book clubs for folks who would like to read along with us. And I want to work on that a bit more in this next chapter. If you listen to us on Spotify, there are comments abilities now on Spotify. I'm also going to try and keep up with those more, so you're welcome to leave nice comments, please. But if you really want to interact with us, Instagram is the best place, us being me. If you weren't aware, I'm Jenessa. I produce, I read, I record, I edit, I market, I do it all. And I enjoy the full process, but it does take a lot of time, and this is not a job. This is purely a hobby, which again, I enjoy and I get a lot of enjoyment from it, but it's a lot of time. Not a bad thing, but it does take a lot of time and effort. I would love eventually, if I was able to make this a part-time gig, and, maybe I will, but that's not the reason why I do this podcast. I do this podcast because it's a creative outlet for myself. It's kind of like my own personalized book club where I kind of force my friends to talk about books and movies with me, which just so you guys know, I would do normally outside this podcast, and I have, but this makes it a little bit more structured, a little bit more official. And I also love movies, and I specifically, obviously, love adaptations and bookish retellings and all the thoughts and the production and everything with that. This summer will mark 3 years of the podcast, which is amazing. We are currently over 5,000 downloads, which also is amazing. Like, when I think about what 5,000 people in a room or like a concert hall looks like, that is intimidating. So that is exciting, to see those numbers, especially this last few months. There's been a big uptake, which I love it. Thank you, new and old listeners, for being around with us. And we are in this number of episodes, we're in the 70s. So probably before the end of 2026, we'll most likely hit 100 episodes, which is bonkers to me. But I really am excited of how the podcast has, shaped and grown over the last 3 years, how my reading has shaped and changed because of the podcast for good, and my different technological skills and editing has worked. I'm still using free programs, which thankful that those exist, but I would like to eventually move up to better quality programs and devices. And that's my kind of long-term goal I would like to reach eventually. And if you're interested in helping me with that, please become a patron. There's a couple tiers, a free tier as well. Like I said, I'm going to try and do some more live stream community-based things in the future. Those are all the updates and questions that I had to answer. I am excited for the rest of 2026. There's a lot of unknowns in the rest of 2026, which is very exciting and daunting, but that's life. And I'm just, just trying to keep pushing and trying to figure it out as we go. And I'm grateful for anyone who's still listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this one-off, casual, chatty episode, please let me know. And if you're wanting more of this kind of vibe, head over to the Patreon, because my friends and I do a lot of silly, either games or quizzes or just discussing various bookish things over on the Patreon, and you're welcome to listen to those. And if you want more, I'm happy to do these because these are fun. I'm talking to myself in my dining room. Thank you for listening, listeners. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Make sure you're following us on your preferred podcasting platform. Rate us 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, don't worry about it, y'all. And remember, read the book first.